Jalabert enjoying the sun, and you can see how it's beginning to kick up steeply now. This was the climb when it was a time trial back in 1962, if memory serves me correct. I remember I was a young cyclist in those days, very young, I hasten to add, and my best friend sent me a postcard from Luchon when I didn't even know where it was, and he said some English guy is leading the Tour de France called Tommy Simpson. And Tom, of course, was an absolutely superb British cyclist and sadly died in the Tour de France in 1967. And that was on stage 13 on what was then July the 13th as well. And poor old Tom died, but he lost the yellow jersey that day in the time trial, having won it the previous day in the Pyrenees. And what a great competitor he was. Now looking at the chasers. George Hincapie on the front with Tyler Hamilton. It looks like they're finding their climbing legs. The gap is 10:20, still losing ground to Jalabert. Note, nobody over worried about that just yet. Jalabert is now 16 minutes off the leader's yellow jersey, but that is nothing to worry about at this stage.
It's amazing how US Postal have turned around in the last few days. I think that rest day came just on time for them to recover and get their energy levels topped up again, because they now know how important it's going to be to protect this man, Lance Armstrong, in the mountains.
Cool face here of Lance Armstrong, Paul. Never looking, it doesn't even look very warm right now as he continues up the climb. And you will note too, we can't see it there, but Jan Ullrich in the white jersey of German national champion is never far from his shoulder. Those two are perpetual shadows. It reminds me of the great duels we used to have in the 50s into 60s of Raymond Poulidor and Jacques Anquetil.
Armstrong is a very calm rider in the main field and played a huge game of poker on the first mountain stage up towards Alpe d'Huez when everybody thought he was suffering. This is one of the riders from the Euskaltel-Euskadi team. Everybody here wanted to take on board as much drinks as possible because this is the start of the big climb. This is Angel Castresana, who will go forward to help his teammates. There's Vladimiro Belli, third place overall in the Giro d'Italia a couple of months ago when he was actually ejected from the race for punching one of the spectators. And strangely enough, he too is in serious difficulty.
I'm surprised about that, seeing Belli crack that early on. He's been riding superbly. But the Castorama here of Euskaltel, he's gone back for the bottles and seems to have the legs to go back to the break. There's the face of the man I was telling you about, Jan Ullrich. Equally looking as though he's playing a game of poker with the American champion Armstrong, who's riding very close to him. Jan looks so strong, and indeed has looked strong in this tour, but he hasn't been able to match Armstrong wheel for wheel once the climb has begun. Andreas Clouden setting the pace here with his jersey wide open. He's been on the floor today along with Kevin Livingstone, but managed to get back into the action.
Interesting change of affairs at the front now, and this seems as if Jan Ullrich has decided he wants to take charge of affairs. He's sending his men forward. Giuseppe Guerini is a dark-haired man on the far side. There's Kevin Livingstone moving forward, and I think right now Ullrich has asked his men to put the hammer down. Talking with his team manager in the car behind, Rudy Pevenage, a former green jersey winner at the Tour de France, and they've decided now this is the time to start blowing this race apart. I would have expected Armstrong would be happy with an attack on the next climb of the day, the climb to Val-Louron-Azé, but in fact it seems now that Jan Ullrich wants to lift the tempo on this climb, the Col de Peressourde.
Well, he is trying again, Paul. This is amazing because he has tried twice to hurt Armstrong without success. Now he's changing his tactics. He's starting to lift the tempo much farther away from the finish.
The only thing he can hope is he can put Armstrong into difficulty in the next couple of days, and the only way to do that is to go out on the attack as often as possible.
Well, we're looking down the Pyrenees, and it's not just the weather that's getting hot now, and Jalabert won't know much about this, but the pace has suddenly been picked up by none other than Jan Ullrich's Telekom team, pushing Postal into the second rank. And Ullrich, talking to his team manager, I think he's planning now to try and test Armstrong over a greater distance from the finish. He realised he has no answer to Armstrong's accelerations on these last climbs up to the line, and he's lifting the tempo very early today.
All of that acceleration is doing nothing at all to the race of Laurent Jalabert at the front. He's riding his own tempo right now, keeping himself quite comfortably inside his red zone, riding a sensible pace so as not to push himself too far over the limit. He will try and lose as little time as possible over the climb and then hope as he's on the descent he can increase his advantage over the main field. The main field now, Phil, is starting to lose several riders from the back end of the group, and one man already in difficulty, in fact, is Carlos Sastre, the O.N.C.E rider in the pink jersey at the back. This acceleration has come all because of Team Telekom. Armstrong has been put into difficulty in the second mountain stages in the past, and that may well be what is going through Jan Ullrich's mind today. He wants to try and crack the American, and the only way he can do that is by going out on the attack very early on.
Sastre's in good company, Paul, because they just dropped yesterday's winner. Felix Cardenas has been dropped by the peloton, and he also is in trouble now, and this is the reason at the front here. As the pace is accelerated, Jens Heppner, and they're going very, very quick now. And the word has gone out, obviously, from Ullrich. Kevin Livingstone is here, Guerini, and also Andreas Clauden. They've been told now to go quicker, and they're hurting everybody. We'll see the time on Jalabert come down quickly, I think.
This is a great battle. Ullrich will not lay down arms. He's won the Tour de France once before, and he wants to win again. His face here not showing any emotion at all. Queuing up behind them are the blue jerseys of US Postal Service. Armstrong there just through the gap, Phil. You can see calm as ever, not actually sweating for the moment, waiting for the moment to pounce. At the back, this is Hincapie. Hincapie's done his job for the day. George is not a great climber, but he's done a great job of work today, keeping the tempo high alongside the Russian rider Yaroslav Ekimov. For Georgie now, his day is over. All he can hope to do is get himself to the finish as comfortably as possible.
He's still got two huge climbs to come after this one as well. So Hincapie has been hurt by the lifting of the pace, and he's not the only one here now as Bonjour riders start to shell away from the back too. This looks like Walter Bennett too. He's gone back. And that's not good news for Francois Simon, the yellow jersey, but he's still down there. You can see the yellow jersey of Simon. Again riding an inspired stage of the Tour de France, and good luck to him as he tries to hang on to men who have built much bigger reputations than he.
Well, Jalabert is in fact increasing his lead over the chasers at the moment, but not over the main field, who are starting to eat into his lead. And the next time we get a time check from the bunch, I would expect it to be back down inside the 9-minute mark. This is Heppner on the front, followed there by Guerini. Guerini riding a lot better than he was in the Alps, and very much shadowed there by Andreas Clauden. The back end of the group, though, Phil, a lot of riders in serious difficulty. There is Paolo Bettini on the far side, and having a hard time in this year's Tour de France, wearing number 12 there, Udo Bolt, is not the great climber that he was.
31 miles or 50 kilometres to go for Jalabert. It doesn't sound very far, does it? But the profile says it is going to take probably the best part of an hour and a half of racing for the riders at the front end. Now this is Laurent Brochard here, who's trying to just hang on to wheels, because there is real pressure here now, and the Telekom boys with this sort of tempo. Is this Patero coming back? No, this is actually Antonio Tauler, the big Kelme rider, who was one of the original riders in the 9-man break today. He's now come back into the fold and will probably pass straight through, I would think, because those legs are probably quite tired. But we saw this as we approached Alpe d'Huez, Paul, over the big mountains there, and once onto the final climb, Armstrong just left Ullrich behind. Now, what's going to happen now? There's a little bit of argument going on here.
The problem there with Clauden, I'm not quite sure what was wrong with him at all, but he didn't look very happy, did he? Kevin Livingstone taking up the pace. The Italian champion, who's really one of the heroes of this Tour de France, Daniele Nardello, going backwards today. He's had a real hard Tour de France after crashing on the first road stage. One of the O.N.C.E riders at the back here, and a few moments ago, in fact, we were seeing that, in fact, Igor Gonzalez-Goliano was at the back, but that was Carlos Sastre going backwards, and that is a major surprise for me to see him, because he was one of the revelations of the opening prologue. This crouched figure now of a Telekom rider will be Jens Heppner. He did his turns at the front, and he's now leading it up to the big climbers. Kevin Livingstone, a change of jerseys and a change of tactics for him, but it's still the same thing in the mountains. Go to the front and ride as hard as possible for your leader. And there is his leader, Jan Ullrich.
And I wonder what Lance Armstrong thinks of his ex-mate, Kevin Livingstone, setting the pace here now for his biggest rival, Jan Ullrich. Has behind the pace of the Telekom and includes now the yellow jersey, losing ground very, very quickly. And this is very early on here. Now, Francois Simon has got to finish within 9 minutes of Armstrong and 8 3/4 of Kivilev to keep that yellow jersey, and he's cracking on the Col de Peyresourde with 2 more big climbs to come today. I'm afraid if he doesn't get back on the descent, he will lose more than that big time today. An attack now by Telekom, and this is an interesting move.
But this is Livingston's gone shooting out the front now. Now, the reason for this can be only one reason at all. That is they're trying to set something up for Jan Ullrich. Livingston has gone off the front right now. He's looking over his shoulder, and he is going to hope and set himself up for Jan Ullrich. Ullrich and Telekom are planning something today. They want to blow Armstrong into difficulty. They want to get rid of him, and the only way to do that is to launch an attack off the front. Watch out, because very shortly you should see the white jersey of Ullrich come forward too.
This is Laurent Roux, a rider who is in the King of the Mountains jersey, but technically out of it now, because Jalabert will top the Col de Peyresourde. Will have plenty of points in hand that once he's over the top. There's no points on this climb now for Laurent Roux, because he's being dropped with Fabio Baldato, two of the original 9 men who shaped this race today. This is becoming a bit of a war of attrition here now, because look at the main field as they all react to the attack by Kevin Livingstone. They are trying to tear each other apart, and there's still 2 more climbs after this.
Not going to be very many riders come to the bottom of Plat Day together right now. This is the tactic of Team Telekom. The stars and stripes are high, and they're high for Lance Armstrong. The other flag you can see there, the red, green and white one, is the Basque flag, and there are an awful lot of Basque riders in this group today, but this is the main group. Jan Ullrich is in there, and he will be soon, Phil, looking for the attack to join his teammate Kevin Livingstone up the road. This is a great tactical move by them, and they want to try and put Armstrong into difficulty and isolate him from the 2 climbers who are alongside him right now.
Well, this is amazing, the way these riders are reacting now. The climbers here watching each other at the same time, and others attacking. As we look here now at the maillot jaune of the Tour de France, the race ahead has simply exploded with an attack by Kevin Livingstone, and they've all reacted to it, and this man now is losing big time, and it's all happening a long way from the finish, not in kilometres, but because of the fact that we still have to climb after we top the Peyresourde, the Col de Val-Laurent and the climb of Plat Day itself. This is a remarkable stage now.
These climbers now are going to absolutely blow this race apart. One of Jan Ullrich's teammates coming forward there, that must be Andreas Kloden or Guerini. Guerini and Kloden were still in this group. We've just a few moments ago seen an unbelievable attack from Kevin Livingstone. I'm convinced today that Ullrich wants to blow Armstrong apart. He probably feels that Armstrong might have a hard time on this mountain pass after showing Ullrich a clean pair of wheels yesterday. Armstrong for the moment has 2 very good teammates in the group with him. He has Heras and Rubiera. On the other hand, Ullrich also has 2 teammates in this group, Guerini and Kloden, but a man up the road, and that man up the road is Kevin Livingstone. Further up the road he has another man, Alexander Vinokurov. Tactically at the moment, advantage going to the men in pink.
Back from the front group, which was a minute up the road at Luchon, is Jimenez. He's been just passed first by Livingstone, now by the chase group. This is Michael Bogart, who has tried desperately to resist the attempts of the group. Every time he gets back on, they accelerate and he comes off the back again. But he's suffering well, and he's keeping them in his sights at least as we continue towards the summit of the Col de Peyresourde. And this is a nasty climb towards the top, and we're not far away from it, at least for Laurent Jalabert right now. That's Perez of Festina, Luis Perez. He's just attacked and also decided it was a big effort for nothing, because he's resisted and gone back into the peloton. This is a bunch now of pure climbers in the Tour de France. Everybody else seems to have just got out of the way and let the others go. We've got Armstrong, Harris and Rubiera are still here for US Postal. Ullrich has Guerini, Livingstone has gone up the road, Bolocchi is still here, Gonzalez de Galliano, Serrano. We've just seen Perez, Bogart and Ertz are in bit difficulty. Atienza is here to give Kivilev a hand. Remember, Kivilev still second overall. Mancebo, Menchov and Pipoli are also here. David Echebarria from Euskaltel, joined by Charot, Botcherov, the Russian, Guber, Sevilla and Rus. They are the riders left in this rather select group now.
The team with the biggest advantage, I would say, at the moment is this team, the O.N.C.E squad. This is Marcos Serrano. A few moments ago, we saw a huge attack come off the front of that group from Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano, but that was quickly marked by the team of Jan Ullrich and Telekom. They were not going to let him ride off the front, but Kevin Livingstone, further up the road, is actually passing one by one a lot of these riders who are coming back, and that is what Laurent Jalabert will see when he looks up to the summit. This is the last 4.5 kilometers of climbing here to the summit of the Col de Peyresourde. And if he gets to the little lacets towards the top there and looks back, he'll get an idea of just how big his advantage is over the main field. Jalabert here just riding a steady tempo. He knows this climb. He's been over it many times before. But in fact, Vinokourov at the moment losing serious time to Jalabert, 4 minutes behind him. 4 minutes 20 seconds behind him is Brogina, the Benesto rider. So this is really a great ride here by Laurent Jalabert. He was in that group that formed very early on in the race after 27 kilometres, and he felt as the 73rd kilometre mark they weren't going fast enough, and he's going out on a huge long solitary move by himself.
He needs the points here to confirm himself as King of the Mountains before they start catching him up. And as you can see, the Lassettes continue ahead of the rider here who lives in Switzerland. He's very much a Frenchman and races on a Danish team. And the big crowd are waiting for him there. They'll shout his name all the way to the top as well. It's been yet another marvellous escape by Laurent Jalabert, former champion of France. But the real race right now is right in the heart of a group of just 20 riders, and there they are. And Armstrong again playing the role he played on the way to Alpe d'Huez. He's watching the Telekom use their men and lift the tempo, and he's hanging on. And what the tempo is doing is destroying the original 9-man breakaway of the day. Vinokourov and Vermeaux are out by 4 minutes behind Jalabert. Brogina is a bit behind on his own, and others are coming back one by one to the break. This is Sven Montgomery and Roberto Leiseca. So I think they're going to be picked up now. They were part of that group with Garzelli earlier on, and haven't desisted the lifting of the tempo. Now Livingstone must have gone by these.
Livingstone is burning the road up right now. He's having a huge day in the mountains. He's ridden past these two riders, and he's picking up riders one after the other. The group here of Armstrong and Ulrich is unbelievable. Brogina, in fact, at the moment we're hearing on race radio, has just caught the group of Vinokourov and Vermeaux. So there are 3 riders now chasing Laurent Jalabert, but they are 4 minutes behind the lone French leader. Jalabert, a man who's expatriated himself for most of his career. He turned professional for the Toshiba team back in 1989, Phil, and after that he went across to the Spanish O.N.C.E team for 9 years. As we look back here, big supporters coming out for the boys today, and Laurent Jalabert, and amazing. You get a chance to see just how difficult it is for a bike rider. He, in fact, is not going very much faster than that lady was running up this climb, but he's been in the saddle now for more than 4¼ hours.
He's still looking good. He wants the points at the top of the climb, and then he will have to see what happens on the next one, because the train is on the attack. But the gaps are not coming down very, very fast. Vino, Vermeaux, we think Brogina is just behind and inching up to them right now. Now, Thomas Brogina is a Pole. The only other Polish rider ever to have won a stage of the Tour de France is Zenon Jaskula, and he won it on this very climb. Well, not this one, but the finish.
That would be quite remarkable if he were to do that, but this man at the moment is having a pretty hard time. Jalabert inside 1 kilometre from the summit right now, but you can see what kind of a summit is it. He can see the crowd all the way on the side of this mountain leading away, a channel of noise over the last kilometre. A little word, Jalabert not wanting to take on board a bottle just now. He'll wait until he gets to the summit of the climb. But in fact, if he has taken on board that bottle, I would say the referees have given him permission to do so. Jalabert at the moment leading this race by 4 minutes over a group of 3, and still 8½ minutes back to the group containing all the favourites, Armstrong, Ulrich and the rest.
150 kilometres done, and we're nearly at the top of the Col de Peyresourde, some 600 metres for Laurent Jalabert, which will confirm him as leader of the King of the Mountains. With one serious day of mountains to come tomorrow, he could get his hands on that jersey for keeps this time, and that would be superb for this Frenchman and a big reward for him, and he'd be very proud of that, I'm sure. But it is a rough day out there for everybody else, and this race is far from run today. Vinokourov and Vermeaux have now been joined by Brogina, but they are still 4 minutes back. The rest of the breakaway at 7 minutes 30, and the main field are at 9 minutes and 35 seconds. So they're hardly catching up, Paul.
They're not catching up very much at all on Laurent Jalabert. He's riding his own tempo on these climbs, and in fact he's keeping himself a big advantage on the descents because he's a great descender. If he looks down right now to the side, he can see the position of the whole of this bike race, and they are scattered on every slope of this climb, the Col de Peyresourde. The third from the end, after he goes over here, Laurent Jalabert still faces another very long and difficult climb up to the summit of the very hard climb, which I would expect Armstrong to attack on, the Col de Val-Louron.
1:25, the official time gap now of the yellow jersey of the race, Simon, to Armstrong's group. So they conceded 1:25. I don't think he's going to come back on the descent if he's losing time like that on this climb, because he'll go over the top probably 2.5 minutes down.
Ulrich looking very concentrated there. Armstrong always up alongside him, which was not the case on the stage of the Alpe d'Huez. But just around the corner now, as we see the Scottish flag flying there, that's for David Miller. But he's not here anymore at the moment. He's taken the fast train back home. Jalabert inside 500 meters to go, and once he's covered this last 500 meters, Phil, he will get a chance to rest and recuperate and top up with energy bars on the descent, because again, still 2 very difficult climbs to go. The group of the yellow jersey. In fact, Francois Simon doing a very good job here, because he's only lost 1:25 seconds on the group of Armstrong, but there are 2 big climbs still to come. This is David Echavarria.
Well, this is it. This is the top, and it's the third first category climb of the day that Jalabert has won. Welcome to the polka dot jersey, Laurent, because it now waits for you when you get to the Plat d'Aix. Laurent Roux won the first climb, Jalabert was second there, and then he went off on his great adventure. He's crossed the Col de Monte, the Col de Portillon and the Col de Peyresourde, but he's still got 2 more climbs to go. His time gap at the moment over the Armstrong group, which is now down to some 17 riders, is 9.5 minutes, so he's still got everything in hand. Vinokourov and Vermeaux have now been joined by Brogini. We might get pictures of them, but our cameras are now spread all over the Pyrenees to try and locate the riders who are breaking up. Now, the latest news we have on Francois Simon is that he has conceded at the moment 1:25 seconds to the Armstrong group. And if he if he continues to lose at that sort of rate, then he will be more than 2.5 minutes behind over the top of this climb, with 2 still to come.
And I would expect him to lose at least a couple of minutes on each of those, because he will start to lose morale. He will feel the yellow jersey slipping away from him, a dream that he's had for a long time now. He went into the mountains with a 34-minute advantage over riders like Armstrong. He's down to 9 minutes advantage over Armstrong right now, and he's already today lost 1.5 minutes of that. I would expect Lance Armstrong to be in the yellow jersey at the end of today, because almost certainly Francois Simon is going to crack big time over the next 2 climbs.
Well, one thing that Jalabert can do is go down hills quick, and this is where he'll hold his own now as he descends back over the Peyresourde to the other side of the valley, which is in fact the side of the valley of Saint-Louis-Soulon. This is this beautiful town that we'll just tickle round the edge of as we start the climb at the Plat d'Aix. But before we get there, we have the simple crossing of the valley of Laurent to come. There's this very select group, and what a group it is too. The big boys of this year's Tour de France now, about 17 strong, and it looks like maybe a little bit less than that. Gone now is Mario Oerth and Michael Bogart. Also gone is Guibert. And one other name that's notable is David Echavarria, has also been dropped, our hero of yesterday.
Well, rather interesting just now, because the Telekom situation is becoming somewhat complicated. 4 minutes behind Laurent Jalabert, we have a Telekom rider, Alexander Vinokourov. Then 3.5 minutes behind that group is Kevin Livingston. And at the moment, Livingston is only riding about 40 seconds off the front of the Jan Ullrich and Lance Armstrong group. Now, I'm not quite sure now if this tactic is going to work, unless in the back of his mind Jan Ullrich wants to attack on the descent, and that's not exactly where he's very strong. Armstrong is a much better descender than him, but who knows, maybe Jan today feels that he can put some time between himself and Armstrong on this part of the climb. Biloki there in the middle in the pink, looking very comfortable. He is only 1 second ahead of Jan Ullrich in the overall standings, and he would certainly like to put some time between himself and the big German.
A bit itchy, I think. Ullrich is looking around. Guerini on the front. Leonardo Pipoli is the Benesta rider. Now here he is. He's also losing ground with that leading group. 1 by one they are being left, and the top strong men of the Tour. As this rider goes away, and looking now at the green jersey here, is this Oscar Sevilla in trouble? It is. Now, we weren't expecting that. Just how fast are they going? And this is why. This is the attack now, mano a mano with 3 cols to climb. Ulrich has attacked towards the end of the Col de Peyresourde. Armstrong has spotted it, and so too has Belocchi.
Well, everybody was waiting for this because of the fact they sent Kevin Livingston off the front. They were trying to set something up. Armstrong right onto the wheel of the German. Belocchi is there. They've left everybody gasping for breath. You get an idea of how difficult it's been this stage so far, because Oscar Sevilla was dropped off the back when they were riding tempo. Now then, we've got a huge group here. Belocchi's cracked as well. Now Ulrich and Armstrong again as we get closer to the summit of this climb. But don't forget, just in front of Ulrich right now is his teammate Kevin Livingston.
And if he gets up to him, of course, it's 2 against 1, and the friend of Lance Armstrong will have to ride for his rival Ulrich. That may have been the plan, as complex as it's been today. Ulrich has gone and blown the race apart. This is an incredible ride here now, because when these two attack, the yellow jersey is going to lose maybe 3 minutes by the top of this mountain.
But where are Armstrong's climbers right now? Heras and Ribiera, they cannot follow the pace here being set by Jan Ullrich at the moment. Ullrich is a fighter. He wants to win this Tour de France for a second time, and Armstrong knew this. Look at that, the look over his shoulder now to see just what is your state of affairs, Armstrong. You've looked at me a couple of times and blown me away. I'm going to try and do the same to you today. Armstrong, though, Phil, is always calm and collected. That face shows no pain. It shows no reaction at all. He knows he has one man to match in this Tour de France, and he's right in front of him at the moment.
So as they ride towards the summit of the Peyresourde, Ullrich is giving it one of his best shots here. Pipoli has recovered a little bit. Kivilev and Atienza, it is the rider just in front for Cofidis. Kivilev, I think, is a little bit further up, because we've not been told he is being dropped. But Belocchi tried to go with them, and it wasn't in his legs. Now, they're not coming up for second and third place. They're the best of the rest at the moment at 5 minutes and 27 seconds. So because of the flurry of attacks, Paul, they've taken off 4 minutes.
There's Kevin Livingston just in front right now. He will have known and heard about the attack of his man, Jan Ullrich, but they've slashed 3 minutes off the advantage of the lone leader. Whereas 131 for France, CSC World Online, Laurent Jalabert. He too by now will know that the attack is on behind. They won't pull very much back on him on this descent, though, because he is a great descender, a huge acrobat on the bike. But these men now have set the race on fire. At the moment, tactically, Telekom have played a very good game. They're 2 against 1, but don't forget they still have another man in front, Alexander Vinokourov. Armstrong has been completely isolated. That was the idea behind that plan.
Well, Atienza hanging on here for Cofidis. Kivilev is in front of him, and also it's nice to see that Oscar Sevilla in the white jersey after that flurry has rejoined. Bocharov is the AG2R rider also here, riding very well. He's waving now for a bottle. Let me just recap the situation for you. Jalabert has gone over the top of the Portillon as the winner of the day. Vinokourov, Vermeaux and Brogina together at around 4 minutes. And then we have Livingstone, but he's now been joined by Armstrong and Ullrich. So it's 2 against 1 in favour of Telekom.
Well, in fact, it's going to be quite remarkable soon, because they're only 1 minute and 25 seconds behind the group of Vinokourov. So very shortly there will be 3 Telekom riders together, and this was the plan of the day for Telekom, to isolate Armstrong. They'd seen the chinks in the armour of his team. Armstrong bolstered the team this winter to bring on board some very strong climbers, Heras and Ribiera, but they've had a hard time over the flat mountains. This is one of Armstrong's men on the front here. That looks very much like Heras trying to get the group organised to try and get up there alongside his team leader. But for the moment, the bike race is really on fire.
Well, this is a tactic I haven't seen played before, where a leader like Ullrich has told his team to attack with the obvious intention of joining them later. And that's what's happened.
That's exactly what's happened, and that's what's going to happen later on, when Vinokourov in that group will actually cease working, and that will then have a situation where we've got 2 Telekom teammates for Jan Ullrich and Armstrong completely on his own. But, you know, absolutely remarkable the performance here of Laurent Jalabert. He's still conserving his advantage over the chasers. He's still more than 4 minutes ahead of the Vinokourov group, and here is the group of the yellow jersey. Francois Simon has yet to get to the summit of this huge climb, and they will be putting big time time between themselves and Francois Simon today. The yellow jersey dream, I think, is almost over as he gets to the summit of this climb. He's going to be almost 4 minutes behind Lance Armstrong and Ulrich. They went over just after 5 minutes. It's only 3 minutes for the moment, so he's done very well to conserve a fair amount of his deficit. But on a long climb towards the finish, he's going to lose an awful lot more time than that.
So Lance Armstrong is now 6 minutes off the Maillot Jaune with 2 mountains to come. So the day is looking very good for the American, although he certainly has his hands full right now with Jan Ullrich. Back to the leader, Laurent Jalabert, flying down the Péresord, heading now for the valley, Loudenvielle, where there's a sprint, and then it's back up the climb of the Col de Val-Laurent.
What a great day for Jaja. He will be picking up maximum points all out on the course. On the descent, oh, there's a risk there. Somebody's gone off. That was amazing. Ulrich's gone down. Ulrich has gone over the edge. Unbelievable. He was taking risks, trying to damage Armstrong, but he's okay. He's up. He's climbing up there. Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable. He took huge risks around there. Unfortunately, Livingston has stopped and waited for him. This is remarkable. He wanted to blow Armstrong away on the descent exactly 40 years after the same thing was done by the cannibal Eddie Merckx to Louis Ocaña.
That was on a different mountain, of course. That was on the Col de Monte. But he never made that at all. Ulrich just didn't make it, and Livingstone saw it happen and waited for Jan Ullrich. Now he's going to have to pace him back. There you can see the jersey of the champion of Germany. He just couldn't get around the corner. As far as injuries are concerned, I don't think there are any. It was a case of not being able to control the bike on the bend.
I cannot believe there are any. We'll have a look at that one more time. He was going straight into that corner, going much too fast. Armstrong was following him, saw that the German had gone the wrong way into the corner. He's fine. You can see he controlled it. He just went over the top of the bars. That was an excellent roll. I tell you one thing, the man is an absolute acrobat, and now he will find that Armstrong is on his own. I would expect Armstrong to wait because there's still an awful long way to go to the finishing line, and he needs to do that right now because he doesn't want to try and take advantage of that accident by Ullrich. He needs Ullrich and Livingston to get himself a little bit closer to the finish line. Ooh, but that was real drama on the roads of the Tour de France today.
Well, what a good job it was that Livingstone was up the road and Ullrich caught up with him with Lance Armstrong, because after he made that terrible mistake, overshooting on the bend, misreading the line completely, thank heavens it was only a rather deep ditch and not a big plunge down the valley below. But anyway, he doesn't seem injured, Ullrich, and Livingstone immediately stopped and looked for him. And then once he was back over the barriers, this is Lance Armstrong, who I think is waiting here, and he is. As we look now at the replay again, that was the corner as he followed up. He was leading Armstrong, lucky not to follow him. But there was that nasty little bit of a plunge and he went over the handlebars. He got back on now. We believe that Lance Armstrong is in fact waiting for the return of Ullrich. Now that is common sense. He hasn't wanted to take advantage of a mistake by the German. That's fair enough and fair play. But he's also not wanting to go across 2 more mountains on his own.
I have a funny feeling that KIVILEV might have come up to Lance Armstrong as well because of that accident here by Ullrich. Ullrich, we know, is not one of the best descenders in the world, but he decided to try and go absolutely all out on the descent. He has his teammate with him now. This is Kevin Livingston, and I'm absolutely certain that Armstrong will wait for those 2 riders to come back. That is a Cofidis rider, and it looks very much as if it should be André KIVILEV. It could be Atienza, but KIVILEV will certainly try and keep himself in the bike race.
And Belocchi might be getting himself back in the action here too, because of that terrible mistake by Jan Ullrich, as we're now swinging across towards Loudenvielle. And it is Belocchi who's got back as well, so he's profited by that mistake. Armstrong, well, Belocchi's not going to wait for Ullrich, so Armstrong's no choice now, and this is confirmed as Andrei KIVILEV, who's having the ride of his life, currently the Maillot Jaune of the Tour now, and Armstrong will be up into 2nd place. This is the sprint at Loudenvielle. And Jalabert well out of the trouble at the back as he takes the points for the green jersey there, and a small time bonus he won't worry about either. Armstrong, it's not Armstrong, Paul, Ullrich, it doesn't look as though he's hurt from that fall, but he must have had one heck of a shock.
That will have given him a real boost of adrenaline going off the corner like that, but he handled it very well. You see, when a bike rider knows he's going to lose it, he looks for options and a way out, and that's exactly what Jan Ullrich did. He will have seen almost in slow motion that there was a crash barrier at the side of the road. He will also have seen that it was almost a small paddock, and he aimed for it, and at the last minute he must have locked up the front wheel and rolled over the top. I don't think he's very much injured from that crash right now, because he's up very quickly and riding well. Armstrong, on the other hand, Phil, I don't think will ride in this group. He'll leave it up to Belocchi, because Belocchi wants to try and take advantage of that crash and increase his time over the big German Jan Ullrich. Armstrong is now tactically in a superior position. He's sending forward Kivilev. Okay, you're the man who wants to get the yellow jersey today. You guys work. I'm not too bothered, because I'm only worried about Jan Ullrich, and Ullrich will come back to this group pretty smartly, I would say.
Well, Kivilev and Armstrong separated by 28 seconds on the overall classification in favour of Kivilev, so Armstrong could knock him off easily enough on the last climb of the day. But this rider here now in a state of panic, as he has one teammate with him. News will not yet have reached Vinokurov, I don't think. If it has, you might see Vinokurov sit up and wait and pick up his leader.
Well, there's the yellow car of the neutral service vehicle, and in front of that car is number 1 Armstrong, 21 Belocchi, and 74 Ondrej Kivilev. They're only about 20 seconds behind right now. Look at Kevin Livingston. What a move that was by Kevin Livingston and Team Telekom to have their man just in front, because if not, this would have been a very long, hard chase. And we're about to witness the catch of Ullrich after a very dramatic moment for him on the slopes of that descent down off the Col de Peressourde. This is a 5-man group now, and Ondrej Kivilev must be feeling very good by the fact that he is still in with a chance with the leaders. He's 36 seconds ahead of Lance Armstrong in the overall standings, but at the end of the day, this race is going to get turned completely upside down. And Armstrong, just a quick look at Ullrich, and I would say, as the champion that Armstrong is, he'll ask Jan Ullrich how he's doing.
Yes, these two are deadly rivals for victory in the Tour de France, but quite clearly there, Armstrong, master of fair play. He wasn't going to take advantage of a mistake, and if a rider makes a mistake and it's his fault, why shouldn't he take advantage of it? But he chose not to. He still decided to let the pace come to him, and Ullrich is back, and now look at this. Livingstone is setting the pace. 27 kilometres to go. He's about 4 kilometres from the top of this climb, as everybody that was in the breakaway or chasing him behind have been swept up very methodically by Lance Armstrong, Jan Ullrich and Yoshiva Belocchi. And we must include now Ondrej Kivilev, because the top 3 of last year joined by the intruder of this year. Kivilev in second place overall, and riding inspired now for a high finish in Paris.
Armstrong has a problem. They're calling him for it. I think he probably just wants a drink or to get some information. He's gone to the back of the group. He had his arm up just a few moments ago. So Johan Bruneel will come forward right now to have a quick word with the man who wears number 1, Armstrong. He's alongside Bruneel right now. I don't think there's a problem for Armstrong here. I think it's just a quick chat, taking on board some drink, and he will have a chance here to get some information on the position of his 2 climbers, Rubiera and Heras. And they're not, for the moment, Phil, very much more than 40 seconds behind him.
So Armstrong having a long chat with Johan Bruneel, a man he respects greatly here. Bruneel will give him all the information behind and indeed in front. They're not concerned about the whereabouts of Jalabert, because he's not pulling back any time that will matter later in the Tour. Jalabert's on a mission to become the king of the mountains of this year's Tour de France, and in that quarter he's done pretty well. But we're looking here at Jan Ullrich, the mud of the Pyrenees on his champion's jersey from Germany. A spectacular crash, great to watch, and thank heavens he wasn't injured.
Ullrich also putting his arm up there, calling his team car forward. I would say at this point of the game it's just to take on board liquid, because this is the first time in the Tour de France we've had the serious temperature rise. We've had temperatures well below 50-55 degrees Fahrenheit, and today for the first time we've gone over 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very hot.
Well, as we look here now at the group here, Belocchi is in a spot of bother as the flag bends there of Belgium, and in fact Belocchi has launched an attack.
Belocchi going off the front right now, trying to put some time between himself and Jan Ullrich. He started the day just 1 second ahead of Ullrich in the overall standings, and he would love to climb ahead of him in Paris. But in fact, Armstrong is coming forward now from the group. We're hearing this over race radio. So also is Jan Ullrich.
Well, Belocchi attacked when he saw Ulrich go to his team car. Armstrong had just been there. Ulrich went back, and the next thing is Belocchi had gone again. As twice today, he's taken advantage of a situation over Ulrich to try and break him, but Ulrich has come back very quickly. You've got to admire Belocchi because he seems to have been in trouble a couple of times, yet it hasn't stopped him launching an attack. But still, KIVILEV is hanging on in there, and that's KIVILEV who's come up with Botero hanging on to the coattails now. And these counter-attacks are going to close the gap to Jalabert. We are about to line up for the Battle of the Plat d'Aix. It's a mountain which has always given us a great finish.
Ulrich is looking very strong right now, and every man in this group is completely isolated from his team. That is why the mountains is where the Tour de France is won. That's when it becomes man against man, when nobody has any teammates left and you have to fight completely against your rival on the exact flat fields, which at the moment are pretty uphill as we're on here, the slopes of the penultimate climb of the day, the Col de Val-Louron to Azé. This is Jan Ulrich just now. He doesn't have any of his teammates left. A few moments ago, they were in a tactically superior position with, in that group, Kevin Livingston and Alexander Vinokourov. But right now, it's Armstrong against Ulrich, against Belocchi, and they want to get rid of one man, Ondrej KIVILEV, who is well in front of them in the overall standings. Garzelli is a long way further back, around about 25 seconds behind the group of Lance Armstrong. He tried to go away on the Col de Peyresourde, but he wasn't able to.
No, they've just finally, we were told he was back there, but in fact quite clearly he wasn't. Garzelli is now just 10 seconds in front and about to be put in his place here. He attacked before Luchon after the descent to the Portillon. And now here comes Ulrich leading the train to put Garzelli, former winner of the Giro d'Italia, back in his position. And I think then finally everybody except Jalabert have been picked up. They have been spread all over the Pyrenees today. Now Jalabert, last check, 3 minutes 25. That should be good enough to see him over the top of this climb and give him more points in the King of the Mountains. But fingers crossed, he's going to be in the proximity of the chase when he gets onto the Plat d'Aix. This is Ulrich. His main concern is what can he do to get rid of Armstrong, and he hasn't found the answer yet, and he's played just about every tactic that we know about, Paul.
Everybody has tried their chance so far. Belocchi on the right in the pink jerseys tried to leap off the front. This man we're looking at here was the winner last year of the Giro d'Italia. A very good climber, but today he's about to get caught by the strong men of the Tour de France. They're down to 5 contenders at the moment, super contenders at that. Santiago Botero is the Kelme rider on the back. He leapt off the front on the Col de Peyresourde, but very smartly has been picked up by this elite group. Laurent Jalabert, on the other hand, is still surviving off the front of the field. 3 minutes 25 seconds, and a bit further back, this is the second main group of rivals. This is Mancebo with his teammate Leonardo Pepoli, and they are joined by another rider here from ibernesto.com who was in the leading group, or the chasing group, for quite some time. That was Thomas Brogina.
Bocciolov nearest camera, Atienza, Guerini, Sevilla. These are the riders now coming back to the group here, and this looks like it's Rubiera of the US Postal Team, all in trouble today, and still one more mountain to come, and it's a brute. This has been a marvellous race here. We're back with the yellow jersey now. We're not too sure where no, we're not. Camera's playing tricks. I must put my glasses on more often. As we're now back with Euskodel here and the O.N.C.E boys, who are driving the pace earlier on, but now are falling out. Charot was the last man from Euskodel here in the orange to be dropped by the leaders, and the man who came back to help out and has now been dropped after the attack by Belocchi is Vinokourov. He's having a fabulous Tour de France, though.
Well, Vinokourov hoping to survive now after doing a lot of work for his team leader. I would expect this is going to be Kevin Livingston coming back as well. These guys have done an incredible job today for their team leader, but now, having done their job, all they can hope to do is survive on the slopes of the final climb of the day, the massive climb up to Plat d'Aix. The riders climb around about 900 meters of ascension from the valley below Saint-Lary-Soulan to the top of the Plat d'Aix. But none of this concerns at all the position of Laurent Jalabert on the road. He's just riding his own pace, hoping to survive over this next climb. He's not too far from the summit right now. He still possesses 3.5 minutes lead over that group. And very shortly, I most certainly believe that Stefano Garzelli is back in the group. A few moments ago, they'd announced he was caught by the group, but he's holding on quite stubbornly.
And Jalabert is holding on from everybody more than stubbornly. This has been a fabulous breakaway by Laurent Jalabert across the Pyrenees today. He came out with the ambition of winning the King of the Mountains in a 1 day of attacking riding, and he's going to win this climb as well. But after that, it'll be touch and go whether he'll make the Or category climb of the Plat Day. That's another question indeed.
25 kilometres to go and about 2.5 kilometres to go to the summit for Laurent Jalabert at the moment. He has only 2 minutes and 50 seconds advantage over the group, which is preceded still by Garzelli by a mere 10 seconds and 3 minutes ahead of the Lance Armstrong Jan Ullrich group. But the crowds, and amazing how even the Basque crowds are behind Laurent Jalabert. He raced on the O.N.C.E squad for many years, the huge part of his career, and a very popular man in Spain, and they would love him to stay clear because it would be almost a Franco-Spanish victory. The orange jerseys there of the Basques, they're here to support Euskaltel Euskadi, only just opening up in front of Laurent Jalabert here, but these crowds are unbelievable.
They're all Spanish, Paul. They're all Basque supporters. The Euskaltel boys are going to be deafened when they come up, but they're cheering anybody right now. This man they know extremely well. He rode all of his best years riding for a Spanish team of O.N.C.E. Only this year switching across to a Danish team. He was rode for O.N.C.E from 1992 till last season. They know Jalabert like he is their own, and they're cheering him home today.
Brilliant bike rider, one of the most magnificent, consistent classics riders. He's so often tried to ride high in the overall standings at the Tour de France and never come up with the goods. This year he's having the best Tour de France of his career. 2-stage victories so far, and the end of today he will be the leader in the King of the Mountains competition, and absolutely remarkable. He may well hold on to finish in the top 10 in this group. A little bit of an acceleration behind there in that group. Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich currently 3 minutes behind the leading lone rider, and it really is a massive battle behind. Andrei KIVILEV, Phil, is absolutely surviving today. He's looking for a high finish in Paris if he can stay in contact with these big heads of state.
1 kilometre to climb to yet another first category mountain in the Pyrenees by Laurent Jalabert. 2-stage wins already. He's now concentrated all of his attention on becoming the King of the Mountains, and that'll be a first major reward in Paris for him.
This is remarkable. This is a recuperation by Lance Armstrong's #1 lieutenant. Where's #2? Roberto Heras. He must have dug deep today. He knows that Armstrong needs him on this big mountain stage, and this is why Heras was brought across to the team. The winner of last year's Vuelta a España was brought across for an awful lot of money into the US Postal Service team, and today he may well pay back his contract. He's there. Where's #2? And Armstrong will feel completely bolstered because of that, because he's got the man who not only is his protege, but also a very good friend these days.
Absolutely, and all of a sudden the pendulum has swung again. Now the odds are 2-1 in favour of US Postal. It was 3-1 in favour of Telekom on the previous mountain. As they're coming up towards the summit now, Jalabert will get the points at the top, but I'm not so sure he's even going to make the start of the Plat Day, because these riders are continuing at a great tempo.
Unbelievable. I'm really not sure where Heras came from. He was riding about 40 seconds off the group of Lance Armstrong and realised he had to do something special today. He could not leave his man on his own at the front of the bike race and leapt out of the group, and a huge effort by him to join Armstrong. And now there are 2 US Postal riders in this chasing group on the road. There's one man still at the head of the race though, and look at this. Jaja is having a great day over the Pyrenees. He's saluting the crowd. He probably recognised some friends there. He's not too far now from the summit of the Col de Val-Louron-Azé, and he will get once again maximum points, increasing his lead all of the time in the King of the Mountains competition. And I don't know if you remember, Phil, but a couple of days ago we actually predicted that that would be one of his titles.
And what a great title, and what a way to win it. He's still got to go through it all tomorrow, and will need to calculate his gains today to see if he makes it tomorrow, but he's certainly trying very hard to sew this competition up on this second day in the Pyrenees. So Jalabert continues, and has the audacity to wave to friends as he comes up for his 4th first category mountain points of the day. Each time he tops the climb, he gets 40 points, and that's moving him well clear of the rest now.
The mountains are what heroics are all about. Everybody who gets to the end of a mountain stage has one story or another to tell, and Laurent Jalabert will certainly have a great one to tell today about his long escape over the Pyrenean stage, the toughest Pyrenean stage with 4 first category climbs, and still yet to get himself to the finish up to the summit of the Pla d'Adet, and that is going to be quite remarkable. He is just surviving off the front of the Lance Armstrong group right now. Armstrong's group at the same point that Jalabert was a few moments ago, probably only 500 meters separating them. Heras going back to the team car, I think now for something for Armstrong as we get closer to the summit.
Took himself a can of Coca-Cola there off the spectators. He went by and put it in his back pocket, but there's nobody going to catch now. He's just about 800 meters on the climb ahead of the Armstrong group as they now descend down to Saint-Laury-Soulon and begin the final climb of the day. Well, I can't see him surviving. It would be a lovely story if he did, but we're going to see a battle of the big names of the Tour de France, the battle for the vacant yellow jersey. It's between 3 riders at the moment, KIVILEV, well, between 4. We must include Bolocki. KIVILEV, Armstrong, Bolocki and Ulrich are now fighting out the yellow between them.
It's going to be a huge battle. Heras is obviously a lot better now. He must have gone through a difficult period. He went back to the US Postal team car there to bring on board some extra fluid there for Armstrong. Armstrong now is obviously going to be tactically superior to Ulrich, but don't discount this man from Germany. He's a tough bike rider and a fighter, and he's come to the Tour de France this year in the best possible situation he's been in since he won the event back in 1997. He prepared specifically for this race by taking part in the Giro d'Italia, in which he finished almost an hour and a half down, but he suffered and rode with a great confidence that he would come to the Tour de France in fine shape, and fine shape he has come. Garzelli, I cannot believe, Phil, is still surviving. He's still around about 10 seconds off the front of the Lance Armstrong group, but on the descent they will pick him up. Stefano Garzelli too will be looking to ride himself a bit higher in the overall standings today, because let's not forget this man is the winner of a Grand Tour, and that was last year. Garzelli started the day in 12th position overall, and he will hope to climb up just a little bit higher than that.
Well, Garzelli's riding a very, very good Tour de France after what for him was a rather disappointing attempt to defend his victory in the Giro d'Italia. Crowd a little bit calmer now as they see an Italian go past them. The majority of the crowd here are Spanish today.
In fact, the majority of the crowd, I would say, come for a nationality they would like to have separate from Spain, because there are more Basque flags out there than there are Spanish flags. We are in the heart of Basque cycling, and that is really one thing that the Basques adore, and they've turned out in their hundreds of thousands today for this weekend in the Pyrenees. Belocchi now is on the front here. Where's 21? Ulrich, Botero for Colombia, KIVILEV riding very well, Heras, Armstrong still sitting there, still ticking over those pedals, waiting for the moment to launch the attack, which must distance himself from Ondřej KIVILEV. KIVILEV surviving in front of Armstrong by a mere 36 seconds, and when we go over the top of this climb, we'll get a chance, Phil, to see just what damage has been done to the yellow jersey of François Simon, because he today must be losing huge time.
Well, look, watch the gap here, because 800 metres is the lead for Laurent Jalabert, but transfer that into time on a mountain, and the gap is still there as Ulrich takes them over from Bolocchi at 2:44. So Ulrich takes second place, and he's riding magnificently. One has to say that. Bolocchi is in a defiant mood as well. He never gives up. Botero will have gone over in 4th, and KIVILEV there in 5th, while the 2 USP boys have a sign language chat at the back.
Another teammate of Armstrong's coming forward here as well. This is Rubiera. He's up alongside the rider from Euskaltel-Euskadi. That is Inigo Charro. In there with him as well is Gonzalez de Galdiano. The other 2 O.N.C.E riders are going to cause a bit of consternation for Armstrong if they get back to the front, but I would think we're going to be treated to a huge battle. They have to descend right down there into the valley below, and that will be the town of Saint-Laury, but up above there you can see the carvings into the side of the hill. That is Pla d'Adet, and when you look at it, it is scary.
Well, dizzy descents now for Jalabert, the new king of the mountains. There is the Pla d'Adet, the mountain on the other side of the valley, opposite Saint-Laury-Soulon. We're going there next.
Jaja will try and recuperate a bit on this descent right now. He'll take on board the last of his energy drinks to keep his levels topped up. Another 30 points in the bag for Laurent Jalabert. He has amassed today 120 points in the King of the Mountains competition, so he will certainly be very high in the standings and almost untouchable. Oh, he almost locked it up there. That was a bad line in the corner for Jaja. You see these roads here, they are very tricky indeed, and the fact that the sun has come out today for the first time on the Tour de France, the tarmac there starting to melt somewhat, but Jalabert not going down this descent quite as fast as he was the previous one.
Well, he's got to be careful now. And we've had a crash, I think, from a motorbike too at the back of the race. But watch this one here. Oh, dear me, his back wheel locked up solidly there. While we're watching these pictures too, the race radio is saying that a motorcycle has crashed, but it doesn't sound too serious just behind.
Well, these descents are almost more difficult for the big, huge motorbikes that follow the Tour de France. Here's the yellow jersey. Francois Simon, 1 kilometre to go. It's going to take him a couple of minutes to get to the summit of this mountain, and he's with a very strong group of riders who have literally blown apart. We get a time check from him over the summit to see if Lance Armstrong and KIVILEV are riding themselves into the top 2 positions. O.N.C.E, 176 kilometres covered, and that was a bit of a dodgy corner there as well for Jaja.
Well, the descent, not surprisingly, being done by the Armstrong group very, very carefully, and I don't blame them. This is a very difficult drop down the mountain here. There is absolutely no reason to take any risks when the favourites are on your shoulder. As Jalabert now also taking no chances. He's probably his heart catching up after that bit of a fright he got as he started the descent coming down the mountain. We're waiting for Simon to come over the top. And remember that at the start of the day, KIVILEV 28 seconds better than Lance Armstrong. If he can hold Armstrong on the climb, he might well be the leader of the Tour tonight. But Simon is still not out of that leader's yellow jersey. We're just waiting now. Here he is. He's still on the way up. The clock, of course, is counting. Armstrong's group went over 2:45 behind the leader. That's not significant. It's how far this man is behind the Armstrong group.
Time is ticking by for Francois Simon. He started the day with a huge advantage over Lance Armstrong. It was 9 minutes and 10 seconds, but he's already lost almost half of that. We'll get an exact time check over the summit of this penultimate climb of the day for the yellow jersey, the Col de Péressourde, and we will then realise whether or not today Armstrong is riding himself into yellow, because I have a feeling that by the end of the Plata day, Armstrong will be the man at the top of the leaderboard. Still.
Well, what a fine piece of defence even so for Francois Simon. He's not going to give this up without a fight, and we'll know very shortly if he's still in the yellow with one climb still to come here in the Pyrenees today. He won't be far away. This is the group that we're still going to watch running on, containing the maillot jaune, and that we're calculating at the moment he is still the maillot jaune of the Tour de France with one climb left to go in today's stage here in the Pyrenees. It's a long, steady slog to the top of the Val Laurent, and it's a very, very difficult descent for the riders. But Simon is still there just. This is the leader on his way down. Still going down very, very quickly, but delicately, because he locked up his back wheel earlier on. And he went back into it. Maybe we can have a look at that again as we see here the leaders go down as they start their descent. Laurent Jalabert, the man in trouble. As you see his back wheel snaking away. That's how it happened down there. Back to the leaders here now as we continue on the way down.
Another good move for Armstrong, because we're getting information. I haven't seen him yet in the group, but in fact Rubiera has now joined the Lance Armstrong group. The climbers of Lance Armstrong are pulling themselves back into this race, and when we start the final climb of the day, the Plata day, Armstrong may very well have 2 teammates up alongside him, and that will be good for his morale, and he will then try and build a huge advantage over the rest. It had seemed over the Alpine stages as if Armstrong was in serious difficulty, but now he's got his men with him. They are rallying around. 2:44 was the time that Armstrong went over the summit of this climb, and the clock will now stop on François Simon in the yellow jersey. It's going to be around about 6 minutes when he stops. 8 minutes and 41 seconds for this man, so he's already lost 6 minutes of his advantage. Armstrong now just 3 minutes behind the yellow jersey of François Simon, and that, I feel, Phil, will get literally blown away on Pladder Day.
Yeah, just a shade over 3 minutes now. Armstrong is off the maillot jaune. A couple of seconds over 3 minutes, and that means that a good climb will give Armstrong the yellow tonight, unless KIVILEV can manage the situation and keep an eye on Armstrong, because he's 28 seconds better than Armstrong at the moment, and he's with him. 14 kilometres to go.
Inside 15 kilometres to go for Laurent Jalabert, picking up the pace again right now. He's coming through the final little kilometres now before he drops down into the town of Saint-Lary-Soulan. A short traversée across the Grand Place in the bottom, and then immediately he will go up the other side of this huge valley for the long climb to the finishing climb. The last climb of the day, Phil, is over 10 kilometres in length and an average of 8.3%. It is going to be very hard indeed. Armstrong at the front of the group there now has got a couple of teammates up alongside him. Jan Ullrich keeping a very close eye on him, and Ullrich will be waiting now for the big attack of Armstrong.
So we're looking at the breakaway, the chase group of Armstrong, which is getting bigger as we watch it. Riders coming back because the leaders are just pushing in the attacks on the way up. If anybody can get back, that's up to them, is their attitude, because they're not pushing home the advantage on the descents when they're still all together. There's no reason to take risks on these very difficult descents of high speed. Looking now as they start to make their way down through the beautiful villages here, heading into Saint-Lary-Soulan. Time to apply the brakes as they run into this horseshoe bend.
The group of Armstrong and Ullrich here going through the small town of Estensan. 16 kilometres to go to the finish, and that is 6 kilometres from the bottom of the climb, the last climb of the day, the Pladder Day. 16 kilometres corresponds to 10 miles, and 10 miles is going to be sheer agony for every one of these men in this group. This is a very difficult climb. 8.3% the average grade, but the bottom 3 kilometres, Phil, are absolutely horrendous. It eases out a little bit, if you can say the climb gets easy halfway up over a small part of the plateau, then it kicks up again towards the end. And Armstrong now is in a superb position because he has 3 teammates in the group. He's been joined by Roberto Heras and Jose Luis Rubiera. A few moments ago he was completely isolated. Jaja's gone down. Unbelievable.
Well, Armstrong has just fallen and his bike is finished. He needs a bike. This is how it happened. This is how it happened, and it's a very nasty fall that. He looks okay, but and a very strange fall too. His front wheel just slid away from him. He's now looking at that arm as he comes onto his spare bike and continues his descent. Well, he was in a very difficult situation at the top of the climb where he locked his back wheel up and slid round the corner. At the bottom of the climb here, it must have been gravel or something on that bend.
It looks like gravel, but you see Jaja is a very experienced bike rider. He fell, but as soon as he knew he was going to fail, his body went all limp. He's just taken a bit of skin off there, but that's not too much. It's a bit of road rash that nearly every professional bike rider's had in his career, but he's up and riding again. A very sensible decision too, to take on board a new bike immediately. The car behind him will have had a spare bike specifically for Laurent Jalabert, and the crowds in this town here of Saint-Lary-Soulan are absolutely magnificent. They're all behind Jaja. He still holds on to around about 2 minutes lead over the man chasing him on the road, Stefano Garzelli, and 2:45 over the huge Armstrong group. And it would be huge for Jalabert if he could win this stage today, because he escaped the main field after just 27 kilometres of racing.
He is a man of talent, there's no question about that. He's led now for more than 150 kilometres, and the majority of that by himself. He left the group he was with of 9 riders just after crossing the climb of the Col de Porte d'Aspet, went away on the descent of that mountain, and nobody has viewed him since. And there's been a tremendous battle amongst the top riders behind. One-on-one, they've gone for each other, but they haven't yet brought back the man at the front. Here is Ullrich here now. What's he doing at the back here?
just cruising at the back, just taking the descent nice and easy. But that was a very quick decision by Laurent Jalabert. It would have taken around about half a minute to get a back wheel in there, and immediately shouted at the mechanic to bring him a bike. The bike is held on by a quick release lever. The mechanic flicked that lever, had the bike down to him in around about 15 seconds, and Jalabert was up and riding again. But it's going to be very difficult for him now, because there's going to be a massive battle on the Plat d'Adet right now. Here comes Bjarne Riis up alongside him. How are you doing, Jaja? He's going to give him information on the race right now. He'll tell him 140 behind is Garzelli, 245 behind is a huge group containing Armstrong, Heras and Rubiera, all from US Postal, as well as Ulrich, Belocchi, Kivilev and Botero.
Well, this is Jalabert now. The adrenaline will run for a little bit as the crowd cheer him on. This massive crowd in the Valley Road now, the Pyrenees. And Jalabert now, he's no stranger to falling off, of course. He fell off a ladder at the start of the year and broke some ribs. And he fell off in a race in Spain a couple of years ago where he burst his eardrum and fractured a bone as well. But let's hope now he can hang on to victory today, because he certainly deserves it.
He also had that very huge crash on the opening stage of the Tour de France when it started in Lille into Armentières, when he went down with Wilfred Nelissen. Nelissen had a hard time coming back from the sport, and in fact never really ever got over that crash. And Jalabert ending up having to have half of his teeth replaced at the front of his mouth there. 10 kilometers to go now for Jaja. Oh, and there's a problem. This is the spare bike. A problem with the gears right now. Oh, it's okay. The problem there was he was changing from the big chainring to the small one, and I think because this was the spare machine, it probably wasn't oiled correctly. Everything's okay now, and Jaja just has to get into his rhythm.
Well, boy, will this day's stage ever lie down with the action here, with the man in trouble at the front and the big boys fighting it out at the back, and even Ulrich has fallen off today. The crowd here cheering on Laurent Jalabert, as very shortly he's going to climb the Plat d'Adet. The bottom of those signs there say the Plat d'Adet open. Well, that's good news. It means there's no snow up there. As we now see Jaja, the official gap, there it is. 3 minutes now to the group Armstrong. A 3-minute start, and he's on the last climb of the day.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be touch and go. Let's not forget, on the climb up to Alpe d'Huez, Laurent Roux started with a 6.5 minute advantage. Armstrong wiped that away in a mere 5 kilometers of the ascent. Jaja is a tough rider, and he will try and get into a decent rhythm. But Phil, on the climb today, this final climb, there is going to be a huge battle, because on this climb right now, we are going to decide who will be the yellow jersey of the Tour de France at the end of the day, because François Simon, the erstwhile leader of this morning, is more than 6 minutes behind Lance Armstrong at the moment, and this is what he's looking at. This is the final ascent of the day. It's absolutely horrendous. The first 4 kilometers, it's like walking on the moon.
And an immense crowd. They've walked all the way up here. The cars left in the valley below. They've been walking for hours. Now they'll be walking for hours when they go home tonight as well. But they're being treated to an extraordinary day in the Tour de France, and a Frenchman has dominated the crossing of the Pyrenees in a superb fashion, unaware of the great battle we've seen going on behind between the stars of the Tour.
Jalabert still having a few problems with that machine. I saw his hand drop back to the rear brake there to try and adjust it, but the crowd here absolutely monumental on this ascension of the Plat d'Adet. The majority of the people out watching the race today are actually Basques. There are so many Basque flags have come onto the course. It is absolutely remarkable. We're actually only over the top of the mountains away from Spain, and that's why they've all flooded in to see this huge Pyrenean weekend.
Well, this is amazing now. This is the last climb of the day. We've seen plenty of people on the others too, but there's certainly no shortage of popularity in the Tour de France, an event which began in 1903. This is the 88th edition, 10 kilometers to go, and Lance is now using his team to launch him into the action once again. The start of the climb, 10 kilometers to go, and it looks like a situation of Alpe d'Huez all over again, because Rubiera, who has come up as he did at Alpe d'Huez, is going to sell himself now to launch Armstrong into the climb.
Well, one rider from Cofidis has gone off the back. That's probably Moncoutier. There wears number 77. The Frenchman, the big hope for France, still in that group. The other Cofidis rider is Andrei KIVILEV. He is surviving at the moment, but this is the big charge of the US Postal Service. On the front here, Jose Luis Rubiera. Armstrong moving up into second position. On Armstrong's wheel is the man who we expect to go forward and win the Tour de France one year, Roberto Heras. He won last year the Vuelta a España, and this is the confirmation of the time gaps on the road. Laurent Jalabert of France leading by 1 minute and 30 seconds, but the gap is already starting to come down. 2:50 to the Lance Armstrong group.
It's going to be tough now because Jalabert is having gear trouble with that fresh bike, and I don't think they can fix his other one in time to make another change. Here he is now. As long as he doesn't change gear, it seems to be working quite well. He's hanging on. He must be feeling terribly, terribly tired right now, and that's the first time we've seen him look round to see what's happening behind him, because we now hear that Botero has also been dropped from the Armstrong group in what is going to become a big showdown. Here's the group, and it's the three Postals now starting to set the pace at the front, and this is Botero on his way back. Last year's King of the Mountains, but he'll fight as long as he can. And this is a very difficult climb now, and the crowds are here in their tens of thousands. This, I think, is the new Alpe d'Huez of the Tour de France.
Absolutely remarkable. There were huge crowds when the Tour came down here many years ago when I raced, and there were some huge battles here on the Plat Day. This is Charot for the Euskaltel-Euskadi team. O.N.C.E are increasing their numbers in this group. On the back there is Marcus Serrano in here as well. 24 is Igor Gonzalez de Galdiano. O.N.C.E have three riders in this group. Belocchi is up there moving on to the tail of Roberto Heras, but the ride being done is the man in the white jersey and the red sides there, number 74, Andrei KIVILEV. He's hanging on for grim life. He wants his yellow jersey. He started the day 28 seconds behind, ahead of Lance Armstrong, and all he has to do is stay with Armstrong to get yellow tonight.
And he might just do it. The little rider we became very friendly with over the years when he raced as an amateur for Kazakhstan in his light blue jersey with a yellow sun on it. That's the national colours of Kazakhstan, and we've watched him come through. And 2 years ago when he won the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic in Australia, or 3 years ago now, he said, I don't think anybody wants me to be a professional. But he got, and KIVILEV, as I speak about him, get up there, Andre, because this you just need to do for the yellow, because this rider is showing great courage today, and Lance Armstrong needs to beat him if he doesn't win a bonus at the top by 29 seconds to get the yellow. And if he wins a bonus, of course, he can move up even less than that. As Rubiera sets the pace now, Heras guards Lance Armstrong. The boys in pink are O.N.C.E, and they all outnumber now Ulrich, as KIVILEV himself just hangs on. He hasn't gone yet.
He hasn't gone yet, but there's a huge train on the front. This is confirming the decision of Johan Brunel at the start of this Tour de France to bring in these climbers. They are so important on this day. Rubiera doing all of the work, and the man they want to distance right now is this man here. He was second overall at the start this morning, and you can see he is really laboured now, Phil. He's really having to get out of the saddle to try and keep that gear going over. He's going to lose more than 28 seconds tonight. Mark my word on that.
Yes, I'm afraid the legs have said enough is enough, and they're all. This is Chanteau. It is the rider from Euskaltel, and it looks like we're going to lose two of probably Igor de Galdiano is going, and so too is Sastre. They are cracking up here. Serrano, sorry, not Sastre, as the others apply the pressure. So the O.N.C.E have lost their two men, so they're isolating now Belocchi, and also the other rider they are isolating too is Ulrich. All of his teammates have left him now.
Well, the stars and stripes there waving for Armstrong. There's a few tricolores of France, but now on the front of the main group, it appears that Jan Ulrich is going to go to the front again.
Well, there's just about four of them left, I think, because the pressure has gone on at the back. There's Ulrich, Belocchi, Heras and Armstrong in the group behind as we now watch, and there they are, and Belocchi is the next to go now. So it's 2-1 towards US Postal as they take on Ulrich here, and what a fight back by Heras.
Well, Ribeira has gone, he's done his job, and he's being now taken over at the front there by Heras. Heras is going to ride his heart out for Lance Armstrong. He has huge admiration for his leader, wants to learn a lot off him in the next few years. He said the difference between my seasons this year is absolutely remarkable. I've spent a lot of time in previous years riding many races to get prepared for the big tours, but with Armstrong we've trained and worked together. We've looked at all of these mountains. They know these mountains now, and Heras is a great bike rider. He's been to the Tour de France before and been successful, and right now he's trying to drag his leader up to the yellow jersey at the end of today. Ulrich is the only man at the moment who can stay on the wheel of Armstrong. This is a role reversal of yesterday when Armstrong was put under pressure by Ulrich and he took off and gained a few seconds lead. Ulrich now looking back to see where Belocchi is, and Ulrich will be climbing himself up into second place in the standings tonight.
He will, because he is 1 second behind Belocchi overall, and that's what he's got right there. That's all he needs to go over Belocchi in the overall classification. We are heading up to the 1, 2, 3 in the order they finished in Paris a year ago right now, as Andrei KIVILEV will continue to try and keep them under control. He must finish within 28 seconds of Armstrong, but the way it's looking, Armstrong will get a bonus, and that will not help his claim. This is the leader, the man who doesn't know the dramatic battle going on behind him. He is 7 kilometers away from the greatest victory of his life.
The only thing Jaja will know about this stage is when he watches it on the video later on this evening. He will know what kind of a battle has taken place. He will worry about his own crash, but when he sees the crash of Jan Ulrich, he will realize he escaped quite luckily. Jalabert now is showing that he is a great champion, turned professional back in 1989 as a young rider for the Toshiba team, which was led in those days by the man Bernard Tapie, who wanted to come into sport in a big way. Tapie signed up men like Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault. At the moment, he's hoping to survive, and he still, Phil, has around about a minute 45 over these riders. Roberto Heras on the front with a bandage on his knee. Lance Armstrong wears number 1, and Jan Ulrich. Belocchi, though, will not give up right now. He's only 10 or 15 seconds off the back.
That man is a fighter. We've seen him fight over these mountains. He's still looking for the whereabouts of Garzelli. We think he's still in front, but the cameras are jumping around so much we can't find him at the moment. And now we're seeing as Jalabert continue to hope he can just hang on now. He knows the fight is on behind him to haul him back. They're not really racing for Jalabert, they're infighting. And by infighting, they are closing in on Jalabert. A minute 45 to Jalabert. And behind Jalabert, we think still is Stefano Garzelli. He's a minute and 25 behind Jalabert. So Armstrong's group just 20 seconds behind Garzelli, and a minute 45 behind Laurent Jalabert, doing the ride of his life today. But then so are so many people in today's stage of the Tour de France, not least Ulrich and Armstrong. This is Belocchi.
Belocchi has just got to hope he can stay as close as possible to Jan Ulrich, but Ulrich now is leapfrogging over him in the overall standings. The gap between Belocchi and Ulrich this morning was a mere second. The advantage went to the man in the pink jersey here, but now the tables are turning. But this man is brave and courageous. He will not give up without a fight. He's riding in front of his home crowd here. The Basques are all out on the slopes of the Pyrenees today. They want to encourage their man to catch the German up. But this man has been the hero of the day. Laurent Jalabert is still holding a 1 minute 25 second advantage over a lone chaser, Stefano Garzelli, who's been there for an awful long time. Garzelli, though, is about to get caught by the flying Armstrong group. Armstrong is there, so is Heras, and the balding figure of Stefano Garzelli will very shortly see the heads of state of this year's Tour de France, Armstrong and Ulrich.
Well, Garzelli has really shown us some defiance as well. In a breakaway that went through Luchon a minute ahead of Armstrong, he left the breakaway to be caught. He survived the climbs of the Peyresourde, and now here, and of course he survived at Val Laurent, but now he's here, and he's been caught by Armstrong, Ulrich, Heras, and just behind Belocchi, who will not give up as Ulrich keeps looking round to see where Belocchi is, because they are separated by a single second in the overall classification, and Belocchi is not conceding much more than that at the moment.
1 minute 23 seconds is the advantage of the lone leader Laurent Jalabert right now, and his legs must be beginning to ache like nothing else on earth. so is his back and his arms as well, as this man just hopes he's going to survive. I don't think he will today, Phil, because behind there is a huge battle for the yellow jersey in this year's Tour de France. Armstrong, Heras, Ulrich and Garzelli are the four-man group chasing behind him. Josiba Belocchi is only about 10 seconds behind that as well, and very shortly we hope we get a time check on the position of the yellow jersey. Armstrong needs to pull back 9 minutes and 10 seconds on Simon today. That is a huge amount of time, but I think Simon has been riding well above himself.
Well, this is Heras doing his swan song and will keep as long as he can at the front, and then he'll have to leave Armstrong to take on Ulrich. Head on one side, Robert Heras has rejoined his captain at the front. Armstrong is now giving his final show of strength in favour of Armstrong. Then we will be down to a battle between the top two men of last year's Tour de France. And Lance Armstrong advanced, and Ulrich is going. This is another attempt by Ulrich. You've got to admire the German and the acceleration answered by Armstrong. It's goodbye Heras now, because the second kick comes, and Ulrich saw the approach there to Belocchi and didn't want him to come back.
What a huge performance there by Roberto Heras. This man is a star of the future. You know, he's finished 5th in the Vuelta on a couple of occasions, 6th overall. He's won stages. He worked his heart out for Armstrong right now, but these are the two strongest men in the bike race, Jan Ulrich and Lance Armstrong. Ulrich will not give up. He will fight all the way to the finish line. He's a tough bike rider, but so too is Lance Armstrong. He now knows he only has to watch one man in this race, and the man is right in front of him at the moment. He wears number 11. They're 1 minute and 13 seconds behind Laurent Jalabert and 7 minutes in front of the yellow jersey of Francois Simon. It is going to be very close for the Frenchman, but I do believe that at the end of today, the man from US Postal will pull onto his shoulders the yellow tunic as leader of this year's Tour de France.
He needs 3 more minutes on this climb to jump over Francois Simon. He needs only, because he's going to get in the time bonuses now, about 15 seconds over KIVILEV, and he's got all of that now. Way in the distance, you can see the ski station summit of Pla d'Adet, and the battle lower down is continuing. Laurent Jalabert is 6 kilometers from the top now, but they are coming at him so quickly, and it's going to be a battle between the two great riders of the era.
Well, Ulrich was using the motorbike there to try and lift the pace a bit. He's got a huge gear ticking over, and he opened up about a half a bicycle length advantage over Armstrong. Armstrong just accelerated onto the wheel of the German, but this now is the day of survival for Francois Simon. Simon started the day hoping he could hold on to the yellow jersey for one more stage, but that is going to be so difficult. He can hardly keep on the back of this group that he's with right now. He's riding over and above himself. This man in the past has lost hours in the Tour de France, and today he's losing minutes and fighting on. He's still lost 7 minutes so far to Lance Armstrong, and if he loses more than 9 minutes and 10 seconds, he will relinquish the lead in this 3-week bike race.
Laurent Jalabert, as he goes round the corners, looks down the valley to see where they are now. He knows they are coming. He knows they are coming quicker than he can pedal. And my goodness me, when you break away after 27 kilometres and you're still leading with just 6 kilometres to go, his legs must be terribly, terribly tired. But he is the new king of the mountains, and what a king he is. Conquering every col today except the first one. He finished second over that. The all-important last one, I think, is the reservation of these two riders.
Now this is psychological. Armstrong, now having been attacked a couple of times by Ulrich, moves to the front. He's now going to set the tempo. There are so many Americans out on the slopes of this mountain today, it's almost as if he was racing in front of home turf. We've met an awful lot of people from Austin, Texas, who've come out here to see Armstrong, and they are all convinced of one thing, Phil, that Armstrong is going to be in yellow tonight. Ulrich now must fight to stay with Armstrong. This man has got the most unbelievable cadence in the sport of international cycling these days, ticking over around about 90 to 95 revolutions per minute on the slopes of these climbs. A few years ago was almost unheard of. It was a little bird in his ear called Miguel Indurain told him to climb, you have to turn a low gear, and Ulrich's under pressure.
This is another attack, and we've seen this on the mountains around France this last few weeks, and now he's gone again. And when he goes, Paul, we wonder, because this man just opens a gap and makes Ulrich look like a club cyclist.
Unbelievable. He didn't even attack there. He went to the front and set a hard tempo and just lifted the pace again and again. He has now opened up 20 seconds advantage over Ulrich in no time at all. Very shortly, just round the corner, he will see Laurent Jalabert. Jalabert is 43 seconds in front of Armstrong at the moment. Look at his jersey, though. It is absolutely soaked with perspiration today after this long journey through the mountains. The Pyrenees are smiling on Armstrong right now. The skies are clear of clouds. This has been one of the most magnificent days we've seen in the Pyrenees in recent years. But Armstrong still needs to finish 9 minutes and 10 seconds ahead of François Simon. He's on a mission. That's what he wants. He wants to be in yellow tonight.
6 kilometres from the summit, Lance Armstrong has flown away from the Tour de France. He has just jumped the gap up to the man in the lead, Laurent Jalabert. He will now continue to win a mountain stage of the Tour de France. What he did in the Alps, he's now going to repeat here in the Pyrenees. There's another record he might be interested in now, because the most active cyclist on the circuit at the moment has 12 stage wins in the Tour de France, and now this will be number 10 for Lance Armstrong, and plenty of opportunity before Paris to win again. Now look at the defiance of Jalabert. He's tried to lift his pace.
Jalabert's a star, he's a champion as well, and in fact Armstrong looked across at him and I would say uttered a word of encouragement, because Armstrong will appreciate the move by Laurent Jalabert today, but that appreciation is not going to last very long at all. Jalabert lifted it for about 20 metres, and now there's one man alone at the lead of the Tour de France. His name is Armstrong. He wears number 1, and this is going to be a monumental stage. We expected it to be, and Armstrong is floating up this mountain. The gear is ticking over for him without any pain at all. This man is the best.
And here, coming up towards that same 5 kilometre to go banner now, is Jan Ullrich. But again, he is a beaten man, beaten on the slopes of the high mountains when he seems to do everything right. The best form he's come to the Tour. I would say his form is better than when he won the Tour de France in 1997. But he's hit a Superman, as he's already lost 20 seconds now, and dancing away to his 3rd stage victory of this year's Tour de France is Lance Armstrong. Free as a bird to fly now. He's crossed all of the cols. He's been attacked. He's counter-attacked. He's had to come back. He's even waited for Jan Ullrich when he fell off. And now, mano a mano, he just flies away.
This is quite remarkable right now. It's 11 seconds already over Jalabert, 20 over Ullrich, 45 seconds back to his teammate Roberto Heras, who did an absolutely magnificent job of setting this up to Armstrong. Before the start of the Tour, we questioned the ability of bringing in Rubiera, who hadn't shown any form at all so far this season, and now he's set the race up for Armstrong. Ullrich, his head bowed in pain, trying to pull himself up to Jalabert. It gives you an idea of just how great the performance of Laurent Jalabert has been today, because Ullrich, who's the strongest man in the bike race, is having a hard time pulling himself back up to the Frenchman. And Jalabert, Phil, looks almost relaxed.
He's waiting. He may even lift the pace. I don't know if he can even lift the pace anymore. Ullrich is going to come by him with his mouth wide open. There's an effort being made by Laurent Jalabert. Remember, his arm is going to be sore from the fall, but they've both got sore arms. They're just opposite sides of the body right now as they both continue, and the revs are still there for Ullrich. He still fights on, at least 2nd place in Paris. He's never finished worse than 2nd in all of his Tours de France, and now that's the way it's going to be again, I think.
Jaja said, thanks for the ride. I think I'll take it at my pace because it's much more suitable for after all of the work I've done today. This is the flattest part of the course right now before it kicks up again, but Ullrich is digging deep. Look at the way he's got his chin set right now. He's using a huge gear to try and stay in contact with Lance Armstrong. Armstrong is opening up the gap. Armstrong, on the other hand, Phil, is completely relaxed, completely concentrated on the job in hand. He wants to get as much time as possible over one man. That one man is not Ullrich at all. The one man is François Simon. If he can finish 9 minutes and 10 seconds ahead of Simon at the end of the day, he will be the yellow jersey at the Tour de France tonight.
And this is the little encampment of the Americans there, wishing Lance all the best. They've got the flags and balloons, and he's raced by now. There's the flag following him up the hill as he passes under 4 kilometres to the finish. With every rev of the pedals now, he is gaining time. But is he going to gain the 9 minutes and 10 seconds he requires to be the maillot jaune tonight? The answer, we think, is yes, but we won't know yet.
Well, he has to keep going. He has to ride his tempo now, because the important thing, Phil, is to open up as much time over François Simon. I'm absolutely certain he'll do it, but we won't know that until this man gets to the finish line in a few moments' time.
Under the 4 kilometres to go for Jan Ullrich. He's certainly not given up yet, as he just about manages to keep Lance in sight. He's probably 25 seconds now, the gap to Jan Ullrich. This is Laurent Jalabert, the opposite side of his jersey, covered in the road of the day in the Pyrenees. But he's still climbing in third place, and he's 4 kilometres now from the top of the climb. More big mountain points for him in any case.
Well, Jaja's had a great day in the mountains. He will be a huge leader of the King of the Mountains competition tonight as we look here on the dancing figure of Armstrong, ticking his way up to the summit of this mountain here at Les Ardennes, almost 6,000 feet in altitude. 1,680 meters is the total altitude that this man will ascend today to the finish here in Pla d'Adet. And still, it's the same pedaling action. It's like a metronome because it's exactly the same beat every minute, every second. He's ticking it away.
This new style Lance Armstrong is fast pedaling cadence. His cool-looking face, and he just thinks and watches and concentrates and doesn't worry about the whereabouts of anybody else. He knows now with every rev of the pedals he's gaining time. The crowds here, the Basques, are just cheering the leaders on as we go to see Joseba Bolocki here now. Continues on the climb with little Roberto Heras. I think they're 5th and 6th on the road. No, they're probably 4th and 5th now. 3rd and 4th rather, because they've just passed Laurent Jalabert.
Well, Jalabert has seen a lot of the action today, and he will, at the end of tonight, know that he's been the leader and the opening up man of what has been a remarkable stage through the Pyrenees. Well, there's one of the Pyrenean bears, and very shortly it will be saluting Lance Armstrong at the front of this bike race. Armstrong is opening his gap all the time on a very stubborn Ulrich, who at the moment has only conceded 38 seconds to Armstrong. Jalabert a further 20 seconds back, and the most important thing is the position in this bike race of the yellow jersey François Simon. This is a long lone figure of Armstrong now, weaving his way through this tunnel of sound. A huge number of spectators turning out for this Pyrenean stage, which they expected was going to be big, and it certainly has lived up to that.
And they will stay for a while now, because we're here tomorrow in the opposite valley of the Col de Tourmalet, the biggest climb in the Tour de France this year at over 2,100 metres, as they now battle through the crowds, an American on his way to victory again. The green grass of home for Lance Armstrong today, because he's racing for yellow now as he heads up to the top of the Pla d'Adet. All the best bike riders in the world have won on this climb, and I'm sure Lance Armstrong knows that too. This man will not give up. He's losing a second or two, but he's not losing huge amount of time. And look at the crowd here. If they could pedal the bike for him, I think they would.
They will cheer on every one of these bike riders, because most of these people at the side of the road today are cyclists. They know what kind of pain these professionals have to go through. They can imagine what it's like to go at the speeds that Jan Ullrich and Lance Armstrong have ascended here, the Pla d'Adet. The complete laboured style of Jan Ullrich is unbelievable, but he's a strong man. He will fight all the way to the finish. He will get some respite in a moment, Phil, because this climb just descends for around about 750 metres, but then it kicks up for the last 2K. Ulrich, he gets it onto the big ring there. He just wants to try and limit his losses to Armstrong.
Well, I'm not so sure he made a mess of that gear change. His legs seized up, they're so tired. He's going to have to pick up his rhythm again now. This man doesn't bother with the gears. He puts it in this low gear, pedals quickly, and just keeps the rhythm going. An absolute and utter concentration. He knows that with every turn of those pedals now, he is racing towards the yellow jersey. The jersey he's made his own these past 2 years, and I reckon now he's laying the foundations for yet another one in Paris, which is only a week tomorrow now. He continues another day in the Pyrenees tomorrow with a massive finish at Les Ardennes, and I think, the way he's riding, he'll look for victory there too.
This is absolutely remarkable, the performance of Armstrong. He's come and changed the face of training and preparation in the sport of professional cycling. In the past, riders used to use races like the Giro d'Italia as preparation, but Armstrong goes and trains on all of these courses. He looks at them on a number of occasions, and he will know just exactly where the 2 kilometre to go banner is, because it's right in front of him now. He's trained on this climb with his teammates, and today they came good. They set him up for this perfectly. Rubiera and Heras dug deep into the suitcase of courage to pull themselves to the front of the bike race and set up Armstrong for this huge attack that he's put in now.
Inside 2 kilometres to climb, as the flag of the Basque people from just over the border in northern Spain are cheering everything that moves here as they race towards the summit of the Pla d'Adet. And Lance Armstrong now joining the great names as winners on this great climb, which is a fairly new one in the annals of the history of the Tour de France this year, this period. I've seen every finish on the top of this climb on the Plat d'Aix, and it didn't start till the mid-70s.
Ulrich coming through the same point where Armstrong was a few moments ago, but Armstrong is 40 seconds in front of him. He is such a strong bike rider, but the big problem he has is he carries around about 8 kilos more weight than Lance Armstrong. And when you consider they both have almost exactly the same power, that is the disadvantage that the big German has over the American. Armstrong's illness took 8 kilos away from his body weight, but he retained all of the power that he had that took him to a World Championships back in 1993 and also to 6th place in the Olympic Games in 1996 when his body was riddled with cancer. He's looking forward at the end of this year to his 5th year anniversary as a cancer clear patient, and that will be huge for Armstrong to go 5 years clear of cancer with 3 Tour de France wins under his belt.
More like the running of the bulls there, the Basques with the 2 Spaniards racing at those flags, but they're the next 2 riders on the road now, and Arras has really found his form today to help out Armstrong and finish in the top 4 on top of the mountains. As he continues now, the clock will start when he crosses the line. He's looking for a tad over 9 minutes for the yellow jersey. It'll be a long, tense wait. But tomorrow, I think he'll be riding his last day in the Pyrenees as the leader of the Tour de France. And if you think about it, there's no other man worthy of the jersey after you're seeing this man ride like this.
His performances in this Tour have been absolutely perfect. He's been on schedule at every one of his rendezvous. The opening day prologue, he was there where he wanted to be, in 3rd place, very close to the front. The team time trial, he was the man who called the shots when the team lost Roberto Heras, and that Roberto Heras has paid him back for this today. Then when he went into the Alps, as always, as has become his habit, he lent the race to himself. He actually went out and hammered everybody home on the Alpe d'Huez and backed it up the next day with 2 back-to-back wins in the Alps, the huge climb up to Chamrousse. 1,000 meters to go, and very shortly he'll turn into the finishing straight here, and the crowd will go absolutely ballistic.
And they're all very orderly, and it's a wide road now for Lance Armstrong. How must he feel now at the last kilometre of Plat d'Aix, as he was at Alpe d'Huez, the other mecca of cycling in the Alps. He won there, he won the time trial. He could have almost have won yesterday when he attacked near the end, but now he's certainly making amends on this 2nd day in the Pyrenees. Armstrong heading now for his 10th stage win in his Tours de France. He's 2 short of the record of the current cyclists, held by Mario Cipollini, who has 12. And of course we expect Lance to at least win the time trial, and he can choose any one of the others he likes, I think.
He may well choose tomorrow as well, because this man is unbeatable in the mountains. Things might change if he gets the yellow jersey, because the tactics of the race will take a different turn. 1,000 meters to go now, the Flamme Rouge for Jan Ullrich, but this man has not given up at all. 55 seconds is the gap between these 2 men on the road. We don't have to worry anymore about Andrei KIVILEV, because he's more than 2 minutes behind Lance Armstrong. This face, this picture, this style we've seen every time the road has gone up the big mountains of this year's Tour de France, and Armstrong coming up now, Phil, for another magical victory here at the summit of the Pyrenees.
55 seconds, that was the victory margin for Jacques Anquetil over Raymond Poulidor almost 40 years ago, when they had a great battle on the Massif Central Puy de Dôme. Now we're seeing it between an American and a German on Plat d'Aix, and he is pulling away with every pedal rev now. Armstrong is going to win the stage. When he crosses the line, the clock will count, and the minute he gets to 9 minutes, then it will mean he is the leader of the Tour. He can get even less than that, because he gets a 20-second bonus for the victory here at Plat d'Aix as well.
Well, Francois Simon currently has just gone past the 5 kilometres to go signboard, so he's a long way down this mountain. It will be a long wait for Lance Armstrong to see whether or not he will put on the yellow jersey, but still, Phil, he dances. Still, he wants to extend his lead over everybody else in this bike race. He's coming up to the finishing line right now, and it is just like a dance, and he's leading the tune.
So Lance Armstrong climbs now to his next victory in the Tour de France, and this, I think, will be the sweetest. Remember, he was 35 minutes behind just a few days ago. He is now going to sit down when he wins this stage and see if he's changing the US Postal blue shirt for a yellow one. A magnificent, and he looks at the sky, memories again perhaps of Fabio Casatelli on a day this race crossed the Porte d'Aspet where his teammate died in 1994.
Ulrich, gotta go.
Back to Ulrich as he continues to climb. The clock has already started. Lance Armstrong now has 10 victories in the stages of the Tour de France. He's won here at Alpe d'Huez, Chamrousse and at Pla d'Adet. Ulrich is absolutely worn out here. He knows the clock has started counting. He is trying to save as much as he can and get as much as he can. He wants to distance himself from Yoshiba Bolocki and make sure at least he will finish second yet again in Paris.
This man is so much fitter than when he won his first Tour de France. He's come to this race completely prepared for the Tour de France. He's a slimmer, longiline Jan Ulrich, but he can't fight Armstrong. He can't fight him in the mountains. He may well rival him on the flat time trials, but for Ulrich today, Phil, he's going to concede almost a minute on the line. 1 minute exactly outside on the course, so it's still Francois Simon. He knows what he has to do. He will now know, because the crowd will tell him, that Lance Armstrong has crossed the finishing line. He's probably started his watch there to try and hope he can finish inside 8 minutes and 50 seconds, because that is what Armstrong needs, because Armstrong with first place there will get himself a 20-second time bonus.
At the moment, Armstrong has moved into second place in the Tour de France. He's gone over Andrei KIVILEV. The clock continues to count now. No one else has crossed the line. We are now heading up towards the 2 minutes time gap. 59 seconds, they might call it a minute for Ulrich there. This is the next man in. Bolocki ahead of Heras. What a ride Heras did for his man. 1:46 it seems.
Well, we're still waiting for Laurent Jalabert. I only hope he survives and hangs on to fifth place, because that has been the courageous, brave ride of the day by the Frenchman, attacking after 27 kilometers, leading over all the first category climbs of the day. And if he climbs up into fifth place at the top of Pla d'Adet, will get himself serious points here in the King of the Mountains competition and be almost untouchable. The crowd are saluting the man who's worn the yellow jersey proudly out on the course. The next man to come in will be this man, Stefano GARZELLI. He's doing honour to the world of climbers, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia. He will cross the line in fifth place.
Well, KIVILEV is still fighting to hold on to his second place overall here ahead of Jan Ulrich. It's going to be touch and go, and we go right down the mountain now, and the speed of the climbing here of the race leader, I think, Paul, is just not going to do it. He has done his best, this man. He's risen to the occasion like all true leaders of the Tour. Pull on yellow and fight. This looks like Serrano coming in now as he crosses the line. 2:51 down.
Next man.
No sign yet of KIVILEV, Paul.
Next man to come in will be Jaja. Here he is. The bands as a former world time trial champion on his shoulder.
Listen to the crowd.
They love it. They know this man has done a ride today. They know he's been a hero. He will put on the King of the Mountains competition today. The leader in that competition. 3:11 for him. 7th place on the stage. A great ride.
One of the rides of the day, if not the ride of the day there, as they continue to come up and the clock ticks on. No sign yet of KIVILEV or the race leader. They're still on the mountain. And there is KIVILEV now. I think, Paul, he's going to conserve some time on Ulrich and Bolocki. He should still be at least second, may slip to third tonight, but he's going to fight on, this man, for the best finish he's ever had in what is his second Tour de France.
He may just hold on to second place in the overall standings, and what a fighter he's been, because he is fighting up against men who have got absolutely huge engines. The men he's been racing again are V8s. They're massive. They are the strongest bike riders in the world. Armstrong and Ulrich are currently moving higher up the overall standings every day. 4 minutes and 2 seconds for Andrei KIVILEV. It is going to be very close indeed. But this man still has got to drag himself up. He has 5 minutes to get to the finishing line, Phil. I don't think he's going to do it.
Well, the crowd will continue to try and lift him on the lower slopes, but look how far behind he is. I think this is the 5 kilometers to go banner, and if it is, then he's not going to make it, because already 4 minutes has gone by up at the summit. and it'll take him that to climb just a couple of kilometres if he's lucky. It could be the 4 kilometres, Paul. Our camera's not showing us, and what a shame we didn't swing right there. We couldn't see what it was.
I would think that'll be 3 kilometres as Botero, now the Colombian King of the Mountains winner last year, come to the line. 4:47 for him. This has been a huge day with huge margins. That was the 3 kilometre sign for Francois Simon. He will get a slight respite here as the road flattens out, and then he will climb the final 2 kilometres up to the finishing line, and that is going to take him pretty much close to 4 minutes. The time on the clock right now is 5:07, so I think I can almost certainly say the yellow jersey has slipped away from Francois Simon, and the new leader of the Tour de France tonight will be American. His name, Lance Armstrong.
And this man, I think, is going to be around 15 minutes behind by the end of the stage, because already 5 minutes is ticked by, and it's going to take him 3 minutes or so to climb every kilometre. Might be 4 now, because he's very, very tired.
Well, he will ride as hard as he can. Another man who's suffered today, the leader of the white jersey best young rider competition, Oscar Sevilla for Kelme. He's going to lose pretty close to 6 minutes on this stage to Lance Armstrong today.
A Frenchman struggles to the top of Plat d'Aix. He has been truly proud to that jersey of the Tour de France for 3 days through the toughest mountains, but today he couldn't make it. Francois Simon will grit his teeth and ride to the summit, and he might just get there inside 14 minutes behind the arrival of Lance Armstrong, the new leader of the Tour de France.
Well, Armstrong most certainly now the new leader. For this man, it's absolute purgatory this last 500 metres. He's pushed his body further than he's probably ever pushed it before in the mountains to keep that yellow on his jersey for as long as possible. Livingston has just come across the line in front of him, who'd done an excellent job for Team Telekom today. But on the clock, it's 12:53 and still counting for the yellow jersey. Francois Simon will give up his yellow dream this afternoon, but most certainly feel he will keep himself pretty high in the overall rankings.
He will indeed. He'll still be a contender in this year's Tour, heading for his finest finish in Paris. There's the clock counting him out of the Maillot Jaune now. Lance Armstrong has known for about 3 or 4 minutes that he's been the leader of the Tour. What a day for him. 13:20 behind Lance Armstrong today. And it's goodbye to the Maillot Jaune for Francois Simon. But he's no reason to feel sad about that. He was an excellent leader.
With KIVILEV and Simon unlikely to hold on to their places, Armstrong's lead was effectively the 5 minutes 13 seconds he had over Jan Ullrich. After the race, though, he was still more focused on the Gazzelli Memorial.
It is emotional because I have never passed it in the Tour de France. You know, it was put up at the end of '95, and I didn't pass it in '96, and I didn't pass it in '99 or 2000. So this was the first time that I rode by it. And the first reaction you have is that it's a terrible descent. I mean, it's the worst descent that we ever do. It's fast, it's twisty, it's turny, it's unpredictable, it's dangerous. I hate it. And you can see how there was a crash there. And man, I tell you, when I passed it today, I just said to myself quietly, I said, okay, there's only one winner today. I don't, you know, there may be a breakaway, they may have 10 minutes, but I'm going to win this today.
The man who'd led the break didn't leave empty-handed, though. Laurent Jalabert took over as King of the Mountains.
The Tour's final day in the mountains was stage 14, 144 kilometres from Tarbes to Louzard-Iden, and it featured the high point of the whole race, the 2,150-metre climb of the Col du Tourmalet. Now, it was on the Tourmalet in 1997. Jan Ullrich left his teammate Bjarne Riis behind and laid the foundation of his first and so far only Tour win. To have any chance of winning a second, he'd need to produce a similar kind of performance.
Right now, as we look at Yaroslav Ekimov on the front of the main field here, Phil, we're about to start the Col du Tourmalet, the highest point of this year's Tour de France, 2,115 metres, and on the summit, the souvenir for Jacques Godet, the man who was the organiser of the Tour de France for 50 years. He retired from that position back in 1986.
Yes, in fact, he followed 52 Tours de France, that man, and he carried on where the founder, Henri de Grange, left off. Well, we're on the lower slopes of the Col du Tourmalet, as you can see, in glorious weather. They forecast, in fact, rather cool conditions at the summit of Louzard-Iden. Well, I can tell you, you need your bathing trunks up here because it is roasting. 17 kilometres uphill now. Now, a breakaway has got away at around 40 kilometres today. 10 riders, I'll give you the names, we'll see them very shortly. Jens Heppner and Andreas Clauden of Telekom, Vladimir Belli, Oscar Pozzi of Fassa Bortolo, Mario Ert, a good climber there from Lotto, David Moncoutier of Cofidis, Bobby Julik of Credit Agricole, Stefan Goubert of John de la Tour, Jean-Célie Robin of Bonjour, and Sven Montgomery of La Française des Jeux. Now they've just come away from the Col d'Aspin as we look out across the valleys towards the top of Les Ardidons here. And I can tell you that over the top of the Col d'Aspin first went Bobby Julik of the United States and Credit Agricole, and followed over the top by Jean-Cyril Robin and Gobar. Here they are. Now, for the first time since they broke away, they're showing signs of cracking here. This is Jens Heppner, one of two Telekom riders. Clauden is the other one just ahead on the right, just slipping off the back. But basically, these 10 riders have a lead over the main field of just on 4 minutes today. And they're not really chasing them down because the best man is Sven Montgomery. He is 36 minutes behind Lance Armstrong this morning. The crowd's enjoying the sun, and a breakaway of no consequence in the lead at the moment.
This is a very long climb, 17 kilometers from the base all the way up to the summit, and they're climbing up what I would regard as being the easier side, if there's such a thing as an easy side, to the Col de Tourmalet. They go through the town of La Mongie, which is around about 8 kilometers from the summit, and this leading group of 10 riders now is literally exploding on the early kilometers of the climb. Surprising to see that, in fact, the Telekom rider in that group has actually been caught out somewhat, Andreas Clauden, but maybe he's thinking about the possibility of another return of his leader Jan Ullrich. Ullrich needs to attack today because he starts the day in 4th place in the overall standings, 5 minutes behind Lance Armstrong, but more importantly probably the fact that he's 1 minute and 20 seconds away from 2nd place, and he certainly would like to crawl up the overall standings to get onto the podium in Paris.
Well, this breakaway showing the first signs of irritation here. Bobby Julik having to react to this move. This is David Moncoutier. A change of pace, and now they're going to have to go lift it up a notch. This is one of the most famous climbs in the Tour de France, making its appearance in, well, straight off the top of my head, in 1910 we first climbed the Tourmalet. They actually put a surface on the road of this Pyrenean climb so the Tour de France could cross. But in those days you would have seen nobody up here. The riders coming up in the dark of the night, just trying to find their way through to get to the end of the stage. And since then, all of the romance has been written about the Tour de France on this climb, the Col de Tourmalet. And alongside Henri de Grange, the founder of the Tour, we might well see today the new stele, or statue as we call it, of Jacques Godet. It stands now alongside Monsieur de Grange, right on the top of this climb, and it was only unveiled last month.
Vladimir Belli is the Fassa Bortolo rider who's made the front end of this split right now, but 1 or 2 riders making the effort to rejoin this group of 10 riders who escaped the main field after 45 kilometers of racing. Good to see that Bobby Julik can bounce back in the mountains. He wasn't super in the Alps. He expected to rival Armstrong and stay high in the overall rankings, but he lost an awful lot of time. He slipped down the overall classification and started today in 30th place, 53 minutes back.
Well, we're looking at the peloton here, about 100 riders together, I would suggest, and a lot of riders in difficulty today at the end of the Pyrenees and the steep climbs, the biggest mountain, because we've seen Stuart O'Grady go off, Erik Zabel has gone off, even the rider who rode so well, Roberto Leseca, has also gone off the back. This is Castrasana of the Euskaltel team. It looks like he's losing contact as well now. Again, all of the spectators are really from Spain, and if you've got crampons and a rope, you can climb over the top of the mountains here and come out of Spain to the top of Les Ardidens. This is the main field as they continue to just have what they're trying to control here is have an easier day until they get over to the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Once over this mountain, we dive down to the foot of the climb to the finish through the beautiful town of Luz-Saint-Sauveur, and then we climb all the way out to the finish at the top of Les Ardidens. Well, I like the Pro Dade climb yesterday and Alpe d'Huez. These are the chronicled, fabled climbs of the Tour de France. And Lance Armstrong having attacked, he's got the time in hand. I don't think he'll attack today unless somebody annoys him.
I think Armstrong will play a defensive role today. He's got the position he wanted. He wanted to lead the Tour de France before we came out of the Pyrenees. But he will be alert and looking for an attack to come from the German quarter, because certainly Jan Ullrich has not finished attacking in this year's Tour de France and wants to climb a lot higher to the top of the overall standings.
Of the 10 original breakaways now, we have dropped Andreas Clauden, Jean-Cyril Robin and Jens Heppner. So we're down to 7. Bobby Julich still one of them. There he is on the far side in green. This looking rather an interesting move by Julich. After a hard ride yesterday, he has not been afraid to come out and go on the attack early today. And it is quite feasible that if you can stay strong, this group could survive to the finish today, because Lance Armstrong's team have no reason to chase them down. And that would be a tremendous reward for Bobby Julich after a couple of rough days in the Pyrenees.
It's nice to see that Bobby Julich has managed to bounce back, but this is a small counter-attack going off the front here, being led by Udo Boltz there, number 12. Quite obviously there again is an attack by Jan Ullrich. Ullrich, Phil, obviously realises that Armstrong is superior to him in the mountains, but he will not give up in this bike race. He wants to make sure he finishes as high as possible, and he's admitted he will do battle with Armstrong all the way up to the Champs-Élysées in Paris in a week's time. Axel Merckx now making the junction with a small group of counter-attackers, and that's a good ride by Axel to get across there. Alvaro Gonzalez de Galdiano is the O.N.C.E rider there. He's the brother of Igor Gonzalez, who's very high in the rankings. In fact, Igor Gonzalez rode exceptionally yesterday, and he's currently lying 6th overall.
Dennis, 152, the Kelme boy, that showed everybody how to win and how to have a victory salute while standing out of the saddle, which we've never seen before, at the top of Axley Term on the Plateau de Bonasque the other day, 2 days ago now. And it looks as though he needed yesterday to recover, if you can recover in this sort of a condition. But now they're on the Col de Tourmalet. There he is, Gardenis. He's recovered well. We're now climbing to over 2,000 metres to the high spot of the Tour de France on what is probably the individually most magical name of any Tour de France, the Tourmalet. And this is the one which any cyclist will tell you about, and many of them have journeyed down here to camp to watch the riders pass through.
Stefan Goubert of Jean de la Tour going off the back of the group. The group really very much together at the moment as we go back to the main field. Armstrong looking very concentrated, happy to see he's got his teammates all around him today, and it looks as if Tyler Hamilton on the front there has recovered from his illness of a couple of days ago. I think the rest day and the uphill time trial came just on time for Tyler Hamilton, who currently is more than 2 hours behind his leader Lance Armstrong in the overall standings. This is a very long climb, the climb of the Tourmalet, 17 kilometers. It's fairly straight to begin with, but once the riders reach the little town halfway up of the Mongy, then it starts to zigzag like many of these huge Alpine and Pyrenean passes in France. As going further back, it doesn't really seem as if Laurent Jalabert is too worried about getting dropped. All he wants to do today is get this stage of the Tour de France behind him.
And he's in good company. His most dangerous rival, 147, Laurent Roux, right alongside him. The red number of Laurent Jalabert there, indicating he's also the most aggressive rider of this tour, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. He has been a marvellously attacking rider, and he's won 2 stages to boot. But he's losing ground on the field today. He knows the Tourmalet better than most. He's not interested in a stage win. He just wants to get to the finish and have a nice cup of tea. And the riders certainly earned that.
Another very aggressive bike rider in this group right now, 109 on the far side. The teammate of Bobby Julich, who's in the leading group right now, that is Jens Voigt. He was one of the very early attackers. Sylvain Chavanel of Bonjour is there as well. But it would be interesting to see how well today François Simon can perform. Simon is really high in the standings right now. He's held on to 3rd place, just about a minute in front of Jan Ullrich, and Ullrich wants to move up into a podium position. You can see on the far side there, Chavanel rode very hard over the last couple of days to keep François Simon in the yellow jersey, and Simon remarkably keeping that yellow jersey on the first Pyrenean stage.
Well, these are the boys that will steadily drop back now, just keeping a nice tempo. Looking here at an O.N.C.E rider, and this is Alvaro Gonzalez Galdiano. As Paul said earlier, he is the brother of Igor. He was riding high in the classification. Igor's had a pretty rough time in the last 2 days. Punctured yesterday, and he punctured again today. But he's come back to the main pack, so for the moment at least his fight is behind him.